Hey, Truth Seekers, welcome back. Zach here. Today's April 11th, 2016. Yesterday, April 10th, big news in the NBA. The Golden State Warriors tied the Chicago Bulls record of 72 wins in a season from 20 years prior. The Bulls set their record in 95-96. The Golden State Warriors have a chance to beat that record in 2015-16. Their final game of the season will be against the Memphis Grizzlies, a team that they are favored to beat. According to ESPN, Golden State has a 91% chance of winning the game. And should they win it, they will be the new record holders, the first team to win 73 games in an NBA season, a season that runs 82 games long. So in this video, I want to show all that was very interesting about yesterday's win. This was the first win in San Antonio for Golden State since 1997, the year Tim Duncan was a rookie. Notice the timestamp, 26 seconds. Lots of timestamps from ESPN yesterday with the 26-second mark. What this made me think about was as follows. The word 20 has a gematria of 26. They tied the record that was 20 years old, and that a record is attached to Michael Jordan and the Chicago Bulls. The name Jordan has gematria of 26. 26, a very special number in this language of gematria. It is considered the God number. The word God has gematria of 26. Michael Jordan, those Chicago Bulls, thought of as basketball gods. The English alphabet, 26 letters. Gematria, the practice of coding numbers into words. If you missed the game, there was a miraculous shot that did not count. Steph Curry threw up a three-pointer from the Spurs three-point line on the other side of the half court that banked in. It didn't count because he let it go a fraction of a second after the clock went off. If you haven't seen my recent work on magnets being used to influence shots in the NBA, please check it out. Yes, it is speculation, but there is evidence to suggest that this technology is real and it is being used to manipulate the outcomes of games and to add excitement to games. A shot such as this, a shot that's not becoming uncommon for Steph Curry, this guy has become the miracle of long distance three-point shots. Shots such as this build evidence for the conspiracy of magnets being used. In the last video I did on this topic, I showed how the NBA has a commercial from 2010 with the magician David Blaine where he tells the audience that the NBA is using magnets. And that commercial features the Golden State Warriors. They use Baron Davis in the commercial. The three-pointer was said to be from 60 feet away. The word conspiracy has gematria of 60. Again, yesterday, Golden State won in San Antonio for the first time since 1997. They had lost 33 straight times in San Antonio. Had they lost yesterday, it would have been the 34th time. Instead, they won, and in the win, they set a new record. First NBA team to win 34 games in one season on the road. Instead of losing 34 in a row in San Antonio, they become the first team to win 34 on the road. This is what I mean when I say the seasons are scripted, and they are scripted by the numbers. The previous record was 33 by Michael Jordan and the Chicago Bulls from that season that they won 72 games. Remember, the word Michael has gematria of 33. And from one of my earliest posts, when I first started this video channel, I explained how the NBA is a 33 league, and so many of its records are centered around the number 33. Headlines from yesterday. Out of all the headlines from yesterday's game, this was one of my favorite. Curry became the NBA's leader with 30-point games. It was his 39th 30-point game of the season. And the reason this is significant is because Spurs in gematria equals 39. The Spurs are 39 years old this year, as is their star player Tim Duncan. Tim Duncan, born in 76, the same year the Spurs joined the NBA 39 years ago. This is their 39th season. Curry gets his 39th 30-point game in the contest. And again, if you've never seen my work on Tim Duncan and the Spurs, the name Duncan in Pythagorean gematria equals 21. Spurs, the small way, equals 21 without the S exceptions, with the S exceptions 39. And Tim Duncan is currently 39 years old. He's going to turn 40 later this month, April 25th. So a lot of 39, fitting for Curry to get his 39th 30-point game. And this is the kind of stuff that has made me come to realize the NBA is truly scripted game by game. The entire season is planned out with these tributes in advance. Think about all the things that have to be lined up for this to happen. And I assure you, they are lined up that way. For any of you saying this is impossible, just go back, watch my other videos, learn to do this research yourself. You're going to find out this has been going on in professional sports for a very long time. Been talking about this since the Warriors became the greatest show in the NBA. So this is just part of the ongoing research. Curry's 60-foot three-pointer doesn't count. Again, conspiracy equals 60. At the end of the third quarter, the score was 62-61, which made me laugh. That's a sum of 123 points. In simple English gematria, conspiracy equals 123. Also, with regards to 62, Mason equals 62. It's a Freemason league, scripted by numbers of significance to the Freemasons. Before the game, they had this highlight up with Curry down on the floor holding his face. So sad to hear the news about Spieth's collapse at the end of the Masters. He was in line to win back-to-back Masters, collapsed at the end. An Englishman won. Steph Curry this year has a chance to become a back-to-back NBA Finals champion. Will there be a parallel? In my work on the Masters, I showed how the Warriors, some of their players, Curry, Iguodala, the coach Kerr, and some others got to play Augusta 44 days before the start of the Masters Championship, April 7th. 44, a big number on the Warriors season. They're in their 44th year of existence. Steve Kerr came back to coach the 44th game of the season. Earlier this year, the Warriors became the Spurs' 44th straight win in San Antonio. Lots of 44 theming with the Warriors this year. They played the Masters course 44 days before the Masters began. Curry and Spieth are both Under Armour athletes. There's this rivalry between Under Armour and Nike. They said that Nike's stock took its biggest fall in years when Curry signed a deal with Under Armour instead of Nike. I mean, just think about how ridiculous all this reporting is. How can a company's stock tank when they don't sign an athlete? Maybe I'm out of touch. Is this how people buy their clothes? Is it really this important to them who's being marketed? Oh, I'm not going to buy that shoe anymore because Curry's with them and not them. I mean, it's just, we live in bullshitville, you know? It's just ridiculous. Anyhow, this timestamp, a minute 17, it's also 77 seconds. It takes me back in time to last year's headlines where Curry hit 77 three-pointers in a row in practice, supposedly. I noticed also that yesterday the Spurs came into the game with 104 wins. They left the game with 104 wins. Think about how the date April 10th in most part of the world is written 10/4. 10-4 means message received. As I talked about in the video after the Warriors lost in San Antonio for the 33rd straight time, I said these games at the end of the season, I think they'll foreshadow who will be in the NBA Finals between the Warriors and Spurs. Right now, things are looking good for the Warriors. Again, we just talked about Tim Duncan and the numbers. Something I wanted to point out also about Duncan summing to 21. On the Spurs uniform, This is small, but any of you who are familiar with the uniform, you can see the lettering SP. The U is a horseshoe. This letter is on the cord of the Spurs. U is the 21st letter. Think about how U equals 21, Spurs equals 21, Duncan equals 21. He wears the number 21. He was born in the same year that the Spurs became a team in the NBA. All of this to me is proof of the breeding of Manchurian athletes. Think about what Tim Duncan is, a 7-foot tall man. Seems that he was named for his destiny of playing his career on the Spurs. This year, a lot of conversation about who's the greater player, Duncan or Kobe. There's been a lot of hype around Kobe's upcoming retirement. I'm pretty sure Duncan will be retiring at the end of this year as well. So now, with regards to going for 73, here's something that one of the readers of my blog found. This was a great find. What we're looking at here is the schedule of the 95-96 Bulls who won 72 games. At the end of this season, let's just count backwards. Their 82nd game was against the Washington Bullets. Interesting that Jordan went on to play for the Bullets, but let's just count back. 82, 81, 80, 79, 78, 77, 76, 75, 74, 73. Charlotte Hornets. Michael Jordan now connected to the Charlotte team that are called the Bobcats. You know who played on this Charlotte Hornets team? Dell Curry, the father of Stephen Curry. The 73rd game of the season for the Bulls was against Stephen Curry's father. Stephen Curry, a chance to win 73 games, defeating this Bulls season record. Should it happen, think about these things that I'm showing. You know, so many people come to my channel and ridicule my work and say this is ridiculous. But I don't think it's ridiculous at all. I am showing how the world has been planned decades in advance, from news stories to sports outcomes, and further, I am showing the link between sports and news. It took me a long time to realize just how scripted this is, but things became clearer and clearer just from watching what was going on in the real world while I was growing up. You know, one of the first signs of sports and news and rigging was September 11th for me. September 11th, a contrived news story full of lies. It was obvious that it was part of a planned agenda. And then in the wake of September 11th, we got the Patriot Act. You know, this nice name for an act that makes it legal to spy and collect information for American citizens while limiting liberties. A very unpatriotic act. Very Orwellian, calling it the Patriot Act. Anyway, what happened right after that? Out of nowhere, Tom Brady and the New England Patriots emerge out of nowhere. And I have videos showing the connections between September 11th, the emergence of Tom Brady, and how all of that was by the numbers. The same kind of scripting we're looking at here. It's amazing how planned out all this is. To not acknowledge this stuff, you know, it's just putting the wool over your eyes and choosing to ignore the truth. Think about the New Orleans Saints, one of the worst football teams in history. They became good immediately after Hurricane Katrina. They won the Super Bowl years later. I just did a video on the death of Will Smith, the New Orleans Saint, the connections to that Super Bowl, and the connections to the most recent Super Bowl, won by Peyton Manning. You might recall Peyton Manning is who lost to the Saints in the Super Bowl, which is comical because Peyton Manning, the son of a former NFL QB, Archie Manning, who played his whole career with the Saints. Start to think, you start to see how this whole show is weaved together. So yesterday, the date that the Warriors tied the record of the Bulls, I noticed something. The Hornets lost to the Wizards 98-113. Again, Michael Jordan connected to the Hornets. They lost to the Wizards, who he formerly played for. Check this out. Michael Jordan in Gematria sums to 113. Very special number to the Freemasons. This year is also the retirement party for Kobe Bryant. Kobe Bryant, someone Who was the Michael Jordan of the league after Michael Jordan retired? Kobe Bryant, 113. Kobe Bryant at the beginning of the season wrote a poem, Dear Basketball. Dear Basketball, gematria of 113. The small way, Dear Basketball equals 41, just like Kobe Bryant. And Kobe Bryant is playing his last NBA game against the Utah Jazz. 113, the only team in the league with 113 gematria. Do you think this is a coincidence? Of course it's not. This is how the league is scripted, and it is scripted by the numbers, and this language of gematria is greatly significant. Think about how Jordan unexpectedly retired January 13th, 1999, just weeks before Super Bowl 33. That was a date with 113 numerology. Again, Michael equals 33. Big news headline just before Super Bowl 33. This number 113 ties into Scottish Rite Freemasonry. Scottish has 113 gematria, very important number to these people. It's also a number coded into things that are mainstream, such as professional sports. Mainstream 113. Mainstream sports are completely dishonest. They are rigged, deceiving the masses. Dishonest 113. Bava Kama 113a, Jewish holy book, says Jews can lie to non-Jews. Think about who runs the NBA. It's always been Jews. Jews run professional sports in this world. They run media, they run governments, and they do it all by this numerical code. Yesterday, before the game, I saw this highlight on ESPN, which made me laugh. Clutch City, highest scoring margin in final 5 minutes of fourth quarter and overtime, scores within 5. And they put up this stat, Warriors at plus 108, big margin over the competition. Notice the Grizzlies are also up here, who they play, for their final game to go for 73. What's up with 108? Golden State Warriors in gematria equals 108. Remember when they lost this year earlier, going for the streak of 33 games? All the headlines said, it's over. The streak, it's over. It's over equals 108, just like Golden State Warriors. And in case you never saw my work on those videos, check this out. Golden State's streak was snapped at 28 games. 28 in gematria equals 156, a special number, 911, the 156th prime. They were chasing the record of 33. The only two numbers when written out that have gematria of 106 are 28 and 33. They have this pairing. Remember, the record was set by Jerry West's Lakers 44 years earlier, the year that the Warriors showed up in Golden State. Both the records for 33 games and 28 games were snapped 44 years apart by the Milwaukee Bucks. Milwaukee Bucks snapped Jerry West Lakers record of 33, snapped the Warriors record of 28 games. Milwaukee Bucks 156. And remember, the Milwaukee Bucks had those pre-printed t-shirts showing that they were going to win the game. I mean, how much more evidence of scripting do you need? Also, I meant to point something out. With regards to Kobe Bryant, the Warriors, think about the Philadelphia connections. Kobe Bryant, originally from Philadelphia. The Warriors, originally from Philadelphia. When this NBA season began, I talked about the Pope leaving from Philadelphia and the connections that was going to have on the upcoming basketball season. The season began with a Philadelphia team having a record losing streak, the Warriors having a record winning streak. This year in the college tournament, I've been explaining that college and NBA are directly connected for years. The scripting, who wins? Villanova, the team with the Philadelphia connections. Villanova won 45 years after losing in the championship in 71. 71 is also the year that the Warriors showed up in Golden State. Keep that in mind. These teams have connections. Villanova equals 108. It was Big Smooth who hit the game winner. And the point guard who dribbled the ball up the court and dished it off to Big Smooth also has name gematria of 108. So some major connections between Villanova and Golden State and basketball. Point out one more thing. When you write out, oh, it doesn't show up on this website. Let me show you. I have to use the other calculator because this calculator doesn't do Pythagorean gematria. When you write out 71, it's the year the Warriors showed up in Golden State, it sums to 45. Again, Villanova lost in 71. They won 45 years later. I should show you what Big Smooth equals the small way. Big Smooth hit the game winner. The Warriors, now 45 years since joining Golden State. They joined in 71. We're now into 2016. The upcoming game between the Warriors and Grizzlies will be the 78th game all-time between the two teams. NBA Finals has gematria of 78. The Warriors lead the series 39-38. Should be 40-38 by the time it's all said and done. But who knows, we could be in for a surprise. Again, ESPN said that Golden State has a 91% chance to win the game. Quite a margin, 91-9. Also, something I want to point out, the year that the Bulls set the record that the Warriors have now tied, they defeated the Seattle Supersonics in the NBA Finals. The Seattle Supersonics have since become the Oklahoma City Thunder. There's a narrative for a Western Conference Finals of Warriors and Spurs. Should it be Warriors and Oklahoma City Thunder? Remember this matchup from the 96 NBA Finals, Bulls and Sonics. Right now there's a lot of comparisons between the Bulls and the Warriors. And again, Supersonics are now the Oklahoma City Thunder, a team that's been getting a lot of bizarre tributes as well this year. Remember, the player for the Oklahoma City Thunder, he recently had his brother found dead in Philadelphia, the city of brotherly love. Talking about those Philadelphia connections. That story could be foreshadowing for what's to come in the Western Conference Finals. Things to keep in mind. Also, I'm still leaning towards the NBA Finals being a repeat of last year. Check this out. The Cavs and Warriors played 2 times this season. The Warriors won both matchups. And here's what stands out to me. In the first game, December 25th, the Cavs lost 83-89. These numbers seem to connect to LeBron James. 83 is the 23rd prime, the number worn by LeBron. Number 23, the same number that was worn by Jordan. Jordan also wore 45 for a little while. Illinois equals 45. We talked about 45 a little bit in this post. As for 89, the nickname King James equals 89. So these numbers, a lot of significance to King James. They played again January 18th, 2016. What stands out to me about this game is how the score reminds me of last year's NBA Finals and what I was talking about. I pointed out last year that the Philadelphia train wreck was a hoax and it was a riddle connected to the upcoming NBA Finals. It also had a lot of connections to Pope Francis. The train wreck happened May 12th, the 132nd day of the year. It had these parallels to basketball and the Pope. Catholic Church equals 132. Pope Francis represents the Catholic Church. Think about how Villanova won this year, a Catholic school. Anyhow, 132. The other number here is 98. And if you go back and watch the videos I did on the Philadelphia train wreck, and I did many, I talked about how heavily the number 98 was coded into the story. Adding insult to injury, when the NBA Finals began, which I was already pointing out was connected to the train wreck, the game went to overtime, game 1 of the NBA Finals. It went to overtime, 98-98. And let me just show you this real quick, because I pointed this out last year. Before the playoffs began, I said the NBA Finals would be Warriors and Cavs. It was easier for me to see last year than it is this year. But let me tell you, the Warriors and Cavs played last year on February 26, 2015. The NBA Finals began June 4th, 2015, a span of 98 days. And the game went to overtime 98-98. The reason I knew that the NBA Finals would be these two teams after this game is because of this. LeBron James scored his season high of 42 points in this game in the win over the Warriors. Both the Warriors and the Cavs retired the jersey for Nate Thurmond, who wore the number 42. And LeBron James in gematria is very interesting. Let me show you this. LeBron James in Pythagorean gematria sums to 42. Again, he scored 42 points in this game, his season high. A number retired by both teams. NBA Finals has gematria 42. I predicted at the time that the Cavs would win the series. They'd win it 4-2. I got that backwards. The Warriors won 4-2. The name LeBron James the big way equals 114. And last year when LeBron James scored 42 points in this game, it came exactly 114 days. I'll just show you this. Early in the season, the Cavs traveled to Portland, Oregon, the 33rd state, and LeBron James had his career worst game since his rookie season. Career worst game on November 4th. It was election day for the 114th Congress. LeBron James, which equals 114, had his worst game, and then 114 days later against the Warriors, he had his best game of the season, scoring 42. I knew that that was no coincidence. I already understood that sports were scripted, dates, player names, gematria, numerology. So following this pattern, I said, okay, this is a major clue. This has to be the NBA Finals for the upcoming season. And lo and behold, it was. My prediction, though, not entirely correct. I thought the Cavs were going to win it last year. So check this out in light of what we just talked about. These connections to last year's train wreck, the Warriors got the better of it. This year, they could also get the better of it, but there's a reason that I think this might be going for the Cavs this year. Check this out. The Cavs and Warriors have played 113 games, another number we've been talking about, in the career history of their teams against each other. That means the next game will be the 114th game, this number that connects to LeBron James. Also, Cleveland Cavs and Warriors, in regular season history, they've played 107 games. The other 6 are from the NBA Finals last year. But in the regular season, the Cleveland Cavaliers have won 51 games, the Warriors 56. And why does that stand out? 51. Cleveland equals 33 with the V exception, 51. LeBron James with the S exception equals 51. 42 plus 9 more, 51. Cleveland Cavs with the S exception, 51. Conspiracy 51. Freemason 51. It has been 51 years and now some months since the Cavs have won a pro sports championship. At the beginning of this basketball season, it had been 51 years and some months. The last time Cleveland won a pro sports championship was the 64 Super Bowl. Or it wasn't the Super Bowl then, it was just the football championship. But Jim Brown, the Cleveland Browns, they won that championship. The city has not won a pro sports championship since. So this season for the Cavs marks 51 years later. And Cleveland has a lot of 51 connections. If the Cavs lose in the NBA Finals this year, I am convinced that we won't see Cleveland win another sports championship. We know that the powers that be love to punk Cleveland. I have a great video on the Ravens and Cleveland's Monday Night Football game last year, a heartbreaker for Cleveland, by the numbers. It was just unbelievable the way they scripted the end of that game. But anyway, Cleveland, it's in the numbers for them to win this year. If they don't win this year, I think they're done for. And the same thing is true about Philadelphia, the other city we're talking about. Another city that loves to get punked in pro sports. At the beginning of the football season, I saw that they had a lot of synchronicities with San Francisco. I thought that that might mean that the Eagles had a chance to make it to the Super Bowl. They choked. They didn't make it to the playoffs. But what happened? Their head coach ended up going to the 49ers at the end of the season. And I think that's the tribute I truly read into at the beginning of the year. What's unfortunate for Eagles fans is last year was your 83rd year of being in existence. Football equals 83. So much lined up for you last year, and you didn't even make the playoffs. I think the Eagles, Philadelphia, Cleveland, these are cities that the powers that be really love to pick on in pro sports. This year's also LeBron's 13th year in the league and Curry's 7th. There's something interesting about the numbers 13 and 7. Culturally, we see 7 is the good number and 13 is the bad number. But look at our language. In gematria, good equals 41. So does the word king. 41 is the 13th prime number. The word bad equals 7. So good has this connection to 13, which we think is bad, and bad has this connection to 7, which we think is good. Very interesting. Some other things to look at that are interesting. San Antonio Spurs versus Cavs. They've played 93 times in the history of the two teams. In the regular season, they've played 89 times. The Spurs lead 58-31. These numbers are interesting. Spurs equals 93. Remember, it's their 39th year of existence this year. If the NBA Finals end up being Spurs and Cavs, based on the way the numbers align, and not just what I'm talking about here, I feel that the Spurs would win that series. However, LeBron has already defeated the Spurs once in the NBA Finals. They don't have as much fanfare right now as the Warriors. I lean towards the Warriors more, but there is some interesting synchronicities here. The 89 games in the regular season, again, the number that connects back to King James. King James is 89. King James Bible is the most Masonic version. 58 wins. Freemasonry equals 58. 31, number for basketball. The games this year for the Cavs and Spurs, they split. Cavs won one January 30th. Spurs won the prior, January 14th. I thought I'd also look at the Oklahoma City Thunder and Cleveland Cavs, another possible narrative for a championship. They've played 107 games. Of course, the majority of those games have been the Cavs versus the Seattle Supersonics. The Oklahoma City Thunder became the Supersonics. Oklahoma City leads the series. Interesting that Oklahoma City has gematria of 61. They lead the series 61-46. In the King James Version of the Bible, there's a special tribute to the number 666 in Psalm 46. Notice the Cavs have 46 wins in this series. Should point out something here about the gematria of the NBA Finals real quick in regards to 666. Notice the NBA Finals. Simple English Gematria 111, English Gematria 666. The NBA Finals 322. With regards to 666, a backhanded way of getting to that number, 6 times 6 times 6 equals 216. Cleveland is the home of the 216 area code. Think about the number 2016 for the year. 2, take out the 0, 216. In numerology, 0 doesn't count. It's also got that gematria of 322. Interesting numbers. With regards to this, I want to show you one more thing here about the NBA Finals and last year. A lot of things in sports are measured from the 44th day of the year, Lupercalia. Last year, the Cavs were in their 44th year of existence. From Lupercalia to the start of the NBA Finals was a span of 111 days, or 3 months and 22 days. We just talked about how NBA Finals had gematria of 111 and 322. Lupercalia also has gematria of 98. And remember, Game 1 went to overtime 98-98. It's a lot to explain. The Philadelphia train wreck was also connected to this data, Lupercalia. I'm just trying to show you where these numbers come from, the significance, how things are scripted in the world of sports and news. Contrived news stories, contrived sports outcomes. So before this post gets too overwhelming, before people say I, connected too many outcomes, we're just going to wrap it up here. Just remember though, this work, it's an ongoing study, it's ongoing research. It's not an exact science. But for anyone with eyes to see, it's very obvious that this scripting is real. The trick is finding the alignments that have meaning and correspond with history. such as Dell Curry facing the Bulls in their 73rd game of the season. Now, the son of Dell Curry having a chance to eclipse that record at 73. These are the facts that are hard to overlook, in addition to some of the things we talked about here earlier, such as Curry getting his 39th 30-point game, their record 34th win when they were also facing their potential 34th loss in a row in San Antonio, dating back to the year Tim Duncan was a rookie. All right, Truth Seeker, until next